Welcome to this week's episode of Time with Your Banker and Financial Advisor, sponsored by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. With me today is Mr. Joe Techi-Yeboah, a seasoned banker, and we are looking at compliance in banking. Stay glued to your seat. We'll be right back.
Get ready to move on up with EcoBank. Easy access to your account wherever you are in the world. More ATMs across Africa than any other bank, so there's always one closer to you. The freedom to pay with a card instead of cash. To bank with your mobile anytime, anywhere. Or send money thousands of miles in a flash. Plus, smart ways to save and invest so your children can move on up too. And trust EcoBank to help with the things that matter most. Visit us online today and move on up with EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Welcome back, viewers. With me today in the studio is Mr. Joe Techi-Yeboah, a seasoned banker. Mr. Techi-Yeboah, you are very welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's been a while. How
Yes.
is the family?
Everybody is fine. You're doing well.
And how is business?
Business is also normal. It's okay.
I'm also doing very, very well.
We thank God.
And you look fabulous in your outfit this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Techi-Yeboah, what is compliance in banking?
Compliance is a department in the bank that ensures that the bank's units and all the departments also comply with the rules, regulations, and the policies that are in the system. This is to ensure that they protect the integrity of the banking system and their reputation as well.
Policy in the system, what kind of policy? Is it the bank's policy or Bank of Ghana policy or the general laws governing the industry?
It is to do with the general laws governing the banking industry, which has been passed somewhere in the law. They were passed by an act of parliament. Others to notices that are given by Bank of Ghana to the banking institutions. So when the banks also get this, they ensure that they collate this into a policy document that will make it more readable and easy to also understand by the entities. So in doing that, you carve out a policy document that will also bring out standards to ensure that people also follow the requirements that have been put out either by law or by the notices that have been brought in by Bank of Ghana.
Yeah, so when you are talking about entities, you are talking about the banking industry in general.
Banking industry in general, but specifically each bank has its own policies too as well, but they all will be derived from the Banking Act or the notices that are served by Bank of Ghana. Yes, so this is what compliance will always ensure that these are also written into policies and then standards, so that if, say, you're talking about account opening, for instance, you need to go by the guidelines that have been set up by the Bank of Ghana. So you need to make it easier for people to refer to and then also comply. So
when you are looking at your policy, you are taking that of the laws of the country and Bank of Ghana's notices. How about the customer?
Yeah, it is. They are also taken into account because Bank of Ghana does not only regulate, it regulates the banks, but as well, when they bring out the policies, it's also to ensure that the customers also comply with whatever policy requirements that are in place.
Because,
so they are not left in isolation. For instance, if there are rules governing account opening, or there are standards that you need, or requirements that you need to follow and then open an account, that's to the customer. So the banks will pass these on to the customers to ensure that they also comply.
Yeah, but I was looking at it as a three-way affair. You know, the customers are our key players in the industry. So if Bank of Ghana has notices, the laws also have their own structure, and the banks pick from the notices and then structures it. I think that the customer should be the main focus in the banks, and the bank coming out with their policy. Yeah, because that policy, though it governs the industry or the bank in particular, it must be passed on to the customer. So I'm looking at putting the customer in the middle and trying to see whether the policies that are coming will benefit the customer or not. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, all these that come out from Bank of Ghana are to ensure the customers are treated fairly. So the Bank of Ghana will always have the customers in mind. Yeah, and that's why they are even more so regulating the banks. Otherwise, the bank would have been doing their own thing. So Bank of Ghana has customers in mind by regulating the bank institutions to ensure that the customers do not suffer. The banks do not take advantage of the customers. So that's the more reason for Bank of Ghana regulating the banking institutions, and also ensuring that there's prudence and the customers are also treated fairly. So Bank of Ghana takes them into account, really.
But how about the bank itself? Because the policies are derived from Bank of Ghana notices and the law, as you have already explained. But the bank comes out with a policy of its own. In the bank's policy, do we take the customer into consideration? Because Bank of Ghana has already taken the customer into consideration. The law will always protect the customer. But when it comes to us as bankers, how do we feature the customer into our policy making so that the customer will not feel like being left out, or policies done and imposed on them?
Yeah, in all these, the banks are just there as a fulcrum, a center for interaction between them and the customers, and the Bank of Ghana also coming in to regulate them. So to ensure that there is prudence, to ensure that nobody suffers, the banks are there to accept deposits, for instance. And in accepting the deposit, they must also comply with the rules or regulations or guidelines that have been set by Bank of Ghana, taking the customers into account, because they are the focal point.
Yeah.
They are the leaders, and they are the people. Basically, they are even ensuring that the banks are there. Without the customers, there will be no bank.
No bank, yeah.
So whatever guidelines that are brought in, it is also to serve the customers. So even when the Bank of Ghana issues notices, they always say that it is notice to the banks and the public. The public meaning that the customers are also being considered. So it is for the banks to also ensure that when they put this in the policy document, the customers are also advised duly so that they also understand and they comply. Without their understanding, they can't comply. So sometimes you go to the banks, they have leaflets that they give out, or customers pick, and these are some of the guidelines, or these are some of the rules, or these are some of the regulations that they need to also comply with. For instance, let me give you a typical example where if you want to make a deposit in the bank, you go and pick out the deposit slip.
Yeah.
There are details that you are required to complete. If you don't understand, it's the duty of the bank to also ensure that they take you through, they guide you to complete it properly. Now, if you are, say, paying if you are paying a deposit for a third party, if you are not the account holder and you are paying for the customer,
you are paying on behalf of the customer to a third party.
You are
maybe
paying to,
you have been sent.
Yeah, you have been sent by maybe the customer. The customer himself or herself did not come to pay in. You give your details. That's the policy requirement from the Bank of Ghana that you as a third party, you should be identified. So for instance, they will take your details, your name, address, signature, and an ID.
That is the third party paying in.
For the customer.
Who has been sent by the customer.
Yes.
Has to come with an ID, and then we take its details in addition to he depositing.
Yes, that's a requirement from the Bank of Ghana.
The regulators.
The regulators, they are giving that because that's also to solve a problem. we need to know whoever is paying for you, whether the person is maybe dealing in illicit transactions or not. Nobody knows. So to identify you properly, we need your identity. And this is a policy that has been brought in by the regulators. And the banks also have to take this into account when they are drawing or reviewing their policies. And so that's how it works out.
So that means that if somebody hasn't got an ID, you have no business sending the person to the bank to deposit money on behalf.
Well, this is an example that I gave, and it's an emerging thing. Indeed, it is a requirement now. So it's up to the banks to also educate their customers, so that when they are sending somebody, they don't need to be turned away, but they will have to tell the person that this is the requirement. And so that once the customers all know this, they will, whenever they are sending a third party, they will let them also send out, just like you're going to cash a check. Now it is both ways, whether you are cashing or you are depositing and you are a third party, you need to be identified. And so the banks will have to also follow and then train their employees as well as even the customers too.
Viewers, we'll take a short break. We'll be right back. This program is sponsored by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Get ready to move on up with EcoBank. Easy access to your account wherever you are in the world. More ATMs across Africa than any other bank, so there's always one closer to you. The freedom to pay with a card instead of cash. To bank with your mobile anytime, anywhere. Or send money thousands of miles in a flash. Plus, smart ways to save and invest so your children can move on up too. And trust EcoBank to help with the things that matter most. Visit us online today and move on up with EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Viewers, welcome back. This program is sponsored by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, and Equity Assurance, Ghana Limited. Mr. Joe Teshie Yeboah, this information, I don't think most Ghanaians are aware that they need to go to the bank with an ID, especially when they are not the account holders and they are depositing on behalf of the account holders.
Yes, I wouldn't say every customer or the public knows of this, but there have been several notices that have been sent out by the regulators, as well as the banks. They have even posted some of these notices in their offices to ensure that the customers also understand and they also are aware of this policy requirement. Indeed, this policy came into being last year, and this is an international requirement from Financial Action Task Force. They ensure that they set out this framework on the money laundering practices and all. So as a country, you know, we live in a small village. So whatever that takes place in the outside, we're also part of it. And we must ensure that we also comply with such requirements. Otherwise, then we'll be left out in the international scene. So it is now, even though it is not in the Bill of Exchange Act, it is now a requirement. And, you know, laws are always evolving. This is we cannot say we will still live in the past. Now things are happening that used not to be there when the Bill of Exchange Act was passed in the 19th century.
Yeah.
21st century.
Bill of Exchange Act, was it even in the 19th? I think it's in the 18th century.
Yes, somewhere there.
Way back.
Way back. Mm-hmm. But a lot of, in banking, a lot of things have changed. And now it's a requirement that you need to also identify whoever has come into the bank to either take cash out of the place or to deposit cash. So that if indeed we are tracing, when it comes to the security agencies investigating a transaction, they will need to take into account all these people who also came in.
It becomes easier for them.
Yeah, so that it's easier for them to also investigate. If without you just giving the name without any identity, you wouldn't know who you are dealing with, who you want to even talk to understand the transaction. So that's why now it has been part of the requirements when you go to the bank.
A typical Ghanaian, hardly reads when he enters the banking hall. He just wants to come and deposit. He comes to deposit and then he moves on. So such notices, how is it communicated effectively to the customer? Because it is the customer we are dealing with. And if we have notices that they are not aware of, I don't think we have done our business well.
Certainly, if you have not advised them or if they are not aware, then it is a big challenge to you, the banking institution. So you need to also put in place measures that will also ensure that they understand and they also comply. So for instance, when they walk in, as you can advertise by indicating that this is for the requirement, but we expect the regulators to do that, not the banks specifically. But this is a requirement that is derived from maybe that is derived from the Financial Action Task Force. But indeed, it is being pushed by the regulators. So it is their duty to ensure that the banks also comply. Because of the stiff competition amongst the banks, if the regulator does not come in to push the banks to do it, then most of them will not do that. Because people will think that you are rather depriving them of the deposit, the required deposit that they need.
That's what I was coming to.
Yes, so it is the duty of the regulator to ensure that every bank also is on a level playing field. Otherwise, others will do it, others will not also do it. So we expect the regulators to really take up that particular, and we have had several meetings where we want the regulators to also indeed take up that instead of leaving it to the banks alone to exercise that right or exercise that privilege that they have put on.
So apart from your notices, where else can these notices be seen so that the customer can be aware? Because most customers are complaining that now if they send third parties to the bank, they are not able to deposit their monies. And as bankers, we need those monies. So if the person comes in and doesn't have an ID and is asked to walk away with the deposit, I mean, you are getting where I'm coming from.
Sure.
Soon we will be losing money, good monies that the industry will need. And when we have this money, it helps in the expansion of the economy.
Yes, that's why I've said that we expect the regulator to give out, send out maybe a public notice. And then
in what way? In the newspapers,
and newspapers, they can
radio.
also have radios and on the radios, and then as well as maybe TV shows and whatnot. All this should come in there. It should be done by the regulator and not the banks. Like I said, the banks need the deposits. So as I speak to you now, it is not, even though it's a requirement for all the banks to do that, it is not being done by all of them.
Most banks are not
doing that. All what they are doing is that they have your name, address, and then your mobile phone number. And that is all.
They take your name in full.
The name in full, your mobile number, and then your address as well. Others take address, others don't even take the address. So we expect the regulator to maybe come out with the notices and also ensure that the banks, maybe they should set some deadlines here where after which banks can be punished for not doing that. But before they do that, we expect them to also go out there to the public to also educate them.
Yeah,
and even explain the reason why there is a need for this. Yes, because if one bank takes it up, it will not be. They can't fight that cost. It will not be effective.
But the issue is that if I have monies, I'm coming from the view of the customer, and I'm sending someone to the bank to deposit, and you are telling me that the person needs an ID before he can deposit such monies, and I'm not even aware. I don't even understand the need for that ID to be given. I definitely wouldn't want to take my money to the bank if I have to go through all this hassle. So I think that, as you are saying, the regulator must come in to break these issues down. At least Ghanaians must understand why they need to send an ID when they are not going personally. And why do you think the Ghanaian need, or the general public needs, an ID before they deposit monies with the bank?
Now, any funds that are paid into a bank, we need to know the source. So you, the third party paying, you have more or less a source. Assuming that you've gone to sell some drugs and you want to come and pay in the money, you want to hide your identity. And it's a way of also trying to ensure that we mitigate the money laundering risks that the banks are exposed to. So once your name is there and you have been identified, we don't just want your name, but we identify you because you are behind, we will see your picture, we'll see your name. So once you write your name and then also take a copy of your ID, then you are known. So that when there's a need for the security agencies to question you as to what monies that you paid in, they'll be able to also do that. But if you pay in anonymously, then who are we going to look out for? Then it means it falls on the customer. So that if, for instance, the customer does not even know that you are paying the funds for him or her, and you just, because you have money, illicit money that you had, and you want to just hide that, and you just hide his account number, you want to just pay later.
That one, I don't think I'll buy into it, because...
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not every time that the customer, for instance, if I am very close to you and I have your number, I will just walk in there and pay in the money and later tell that I have paid in some money. When it goes free, nothing happens, then I'll tell you that I have paid in some money for you to do. But
I'll not be happy because you didn't seek my permission before you paid in that money.
Sure.
And as you were talking, if we are talking about money laundering, it's in huge sums. So if somebody have just 80 Ghana cedis or 100 Ghana cedis or maybe 50 Ghana cedis as a third party, and is paying in, somebody who is being sent and is paying in, and you are saying that this minimal amount of money, the person should come with an ID, isn't it worrisome?
Money laundering is not about huge sums of money. It could also be small sums of money that will be paid. For instance, if you want to pay in money, and you know that it's illicit, and you don't want to pay in the huge sums of money, you can spread it. We call it structuring. You can just give it out to so many people to go and pay in, and at different points, different banks. And it's still the same huge sums of money that you have divided into various sums, and people are paying in. That does not stop you from laundering the funds. But
money like 50 Ghana cedis, any business tycoon or money launderer will not deal in lesser notes like 50 Ghana cedis. I think there should be a threshold that in amounts above this, you should have come with an ID or something.
Once you are paying the 50 Ghana cedis in a particular branch, how do we also ensure that similar sums are not also being paid in other branches and other banks?
All over the country.
All over the place. It's possible.
But how many 50s can we get into a $200 or $1,000 or $500,000 transaction? We'll be back. Viewers will be right back. This program is sponsored by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, and Equity Assurance Ghana Limited.
Get ready to move on up with EcoBank. Easy access to your account wherever you are in the world. More ATMs across Africa than any other bank, so there's always one closer to you. The freedom to pay with a card instead of cash. To bank with your mobile anytime, anywhere. Or send money thousands of miles in a flash. Plus, smart ways to save and invest so your children can move on up too. And trust EcoBank to help with the things that matter most. Visit us online today and move on up with EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Welcome back, viewers. Today we are learning new things, and it's a bit difficult when you are looking at it from the point of the customer, but logically it is just right that we know people's source of funds, looking at the way the world is heading towards. When banking started, we don't have too many crooks or rooks in the system. Now people are smart, people are fast, people can do anything on the internet, and people will do anything for money. So sometimes the regulator also needs to tighten knots here and there, though we as customers feel very uncomfortable with some of the decisions that comes. because in a way it slows our business and it's kind of put too much pressure on us. So if you want to send somebody to the bank and the person hasn't got an ID, that means that you have to stop whatever you are doing and go to the bank by yourself. It becomes a bit difficult. And we Ghanaians, we wouldn't want to go that extra mile. So I think, as Mr. Joe Techi Yeboah said, the regulator needs to come out to convince us and give us reasons as to why we need to third parties need to take IDs to the bank when they are depositing. Because this thing was implemented last year, but most banks are not into it because of the difficulty they are having with their customers. And if the regulator doesn't come in to help in addressing this issue, most bank customers will begin to lose their depositors. That's the customer. So in a way, I think the regulator needs to come up strongly to convince Ghanaians as to why they need to send an ID or accompany their deposit with IDs whenever they want to put monies into the account holder's account. Mr. Techi Yeboah, you know my difficulty here. I'm looking at our discussion from the view of the customer. That a customer sends someone to the bank to deposit, and the bank is asking for an ID. If the person doesn't have an ID, that means that that day's deposit will not be taken.
Well, as we speak now, as of now, like I said, banks are now enforcing it. However, what they have, the details that they have currently is that most of them have is that they have the third party's name, the address, and then the telephone number. That's what they have. But that does not satisfy the requirement that the regulators need. The requirement is that you should identify whoever is paying in for the account holder, which requires that you need the person's ID, photo ID. So you should make a photo ID and attach, just as you do for third parties, also cashing checks. So whatever you do for third parties, either by cashing a check or by depositing, should be the same. So that's what we are looking at. So, but it is a gradual process that we need to also educate the customers for them to understand. All what we are doing, if we are even fighting money laundering, is in the interest of terrorist financing, it's in the interest of the customers. For instance, if terrorists one day they wake up and they've gone to bomb an area, customers will suffer. The banks also, if it's a bank, banks also suffer. Even if they are blasting a bank, the bank customers as well also suffer.
That's
so
the staff.
Yes, staff and customers as well. They all suffer. If it's outside the banking system too, it could affect anybody at all. The public will also suffer. There will be destruction. So that's why we need to all ensure that we comply with whatever measures or whatever requirements that the banks are pushed to maybe implement. So it's in the interest of everybody, the public.
But I think that, as you said earlier, the regulator must come in to educate, proper education, so that the customer will not feel like as if he's being pushed out of the industry or he's being forced to hold on to his monies rather than send it to the bank.
Yes, it is true, especially when most people do not want to go to the bank. And if you are bringing measures that will also put them away from the bank, then it will not be good for the country as a whole. We need more people to also patronize the banking institutions and patronize the banking system. And so this is I also feel that the regulators will have to come out, do the advertisement, do more education, maybe hold workshops, seminars, and then fora where they can educate the customers for them to understand. There's a need to understand. If you don't understand something, it will be difficult to really comply. So they need to also educate the public, and then the banks will also come in and they also educate their customers.
Mr. Joe Techi Yeboah, unfortunately, our time is up. Viewers, all too soon our time is up. This is where we'll end today's program on Time with Your Banker and Financial Advisor, sponsored by Ecobank, the Pan-African Bank. I hope you haven't forgotten to get a copy of the 21st Century Bank Teller book written by Madam Alberta Kwakupon. See you same time next week. I'm your host, Betty Ayi.